Councillor? We're just looking to the posse over here for, I'll stop right now. I'm sorry. I don't believe you. No. Okay, we got the feed up and running, so we're streaming. Good evening. We'll call the public hearing to order tonight. Purpose of tonight's hearing is to talk about the Heritage Hill Stage 2 Neighborhood Plan Amendment. Is there someone from administration giving a report tonight? No? Okay. Oh, that's right. That's our new policy. Yeah, geez. Some of those old habits will die hard. Anyways, we will go to the speakers list. Yeah. Oh, the applicant, sorry. I'm glad there's some stewarding tonight. Thank you. If the applicant would come forward, sorry. Let's hear from the applicant. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? So Patrick from Brown and Associates is almost here, but I'm Josh Hagan. A little bit of a different hat tonight. I'm with GDS, my development management company. Oh, yes, thank you. And I'm the developer for the Heritage Hills project that we have in front of us today, 20 acres. I'll give you a little bit of background as we wait for Patrick to come in, and then he'll proceed with the presentation, and of course I'll be around for any questions, etc. So interesting kind of background to this. I've obviously been involved with Cochrane and development for the last number of years. And then this parcel of land, I'd gotten to know the previous landowner for the better part of a year or so, and he was interested in possibly developing it himself. But then due to a number of personal circumstances, decided he just wanted to sell it. So I put together an investor group, including GDS, to buy the property last fall. We went through a bunch of due diligence on it. Obviously, in this part of that process, we pulled up old plans, reports, approvals, etc. And obviously, through that process, got very comfortable with where everything was at, and ultimately closed on the property. I think it was the end of October. Since that time, we've gone and spent just about $250,000 on kind of prepping the land for development. Obviously improved what was there previously, an old farmhouse and some sheds, etc. Did some minor cleanup as well. Took down some power lines, removed some poles, etc. So really have kind of gotten the property to the position that's in today, which is ready for development. We're in for a development permit application as well for a stripping and grading that we're hopeful to get going on here in August. Obviously subject to how tonight goes, looking forward to getting through to subdivision, construction drawings, and into the fall of actually starting to service some of these lots. Patrick is not here, so I'll just kind of dive into it. So obviously you guys are aware of where Heritage Hills and where specifically this property is over in the northwest corner of Cochrane. Number 2 there, the yellow is the subject lands, 20 acres. Really unique, obviously being kind of built out all around it. This is one of the last areas to kind of complete and also provide some connectivity for the existing residents living on the east and the west side of the property as well. As I mentioned, we're in for subdivision right now. This is the overall lotting plan that's been planned for the area. I think the background as to why we're here is mostly an administrative cleanup process, if you will, for the neighborhood plan itself. So to take a step back for a couple minutes, the The neighborhood plan was originally approved back in 2016, as was the land use. Prior to me in 2019, another developer came in looking to develop the property. As part of his due diligence process, he decided to proceed with updating the lotting plan, which is what you have before you today. Part of that process was to, let's see here, was to basically all over the place here. Basically look at, if you look at halfway down the plan, there's the green space on the left. That was the original concept plan back in 2019. In order to accommodate what this proposed concept plan is, there needed to be land use adjustments. So as part of those land use adjustments, there needed to be some additional residential applied to where the existing park is, and then some other minor configuration of the property that obviously you can see in front of you there. That was all approved by council in 2019 as during the land use amendment process. Fairly unique to that, and which is also what attracted us, the investors, to buying the property, was as part of that bylaw, which is bylaw 30, 2019, was Schedule A. And Schedule A had a lotting plan that supported the land use bylaw amendments, which basically is exactly what you're seeing with the proposed concept plan in place. So I'm kind of all over the place, but hopefully you're following along. Effectively, we're here before you today because when we came up with our original subdivision application back in the spring, it was identified that the existing neighborhood plan was out of step, as you could see the original plan there over to the left, and needed to be updated to reflect, ultimately was approved by council back in 2019. So most of it is internal, as you can see, and predominantly it was moving that north-south road slightly further internal to the site to accommodate additional housing over on the west side there that would overlook the park. We've managed to maintain, obviously, connectivity to the park with a walkway up at the north there, as well as a walkway down at the very south boundary. It is a local park, I should highlight, not a regional, so we're not looking to be attracting a bunch of additional vehicle traffic to it. So yeah, that's really kind of the background to why we're here, is to get the 2016 neighborhood plan up to speed with the 2019 council approved land use and supporting lotting plan. Maybe you want to hop in here. I'm kind of all over the place, but maybe a bit more on the technical side. Patrick, you can talk about what we're trying to do here. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Don't use Cochrane's traffic as your reason.
Yeah, my apologies for being a little late here, but thanks, Josh, for getting us started and everything. But yeah, we just wanted to, this is where you've landed, I believe.
So,
yeah. So as you might have heard, I'll just go back, there was a subdivision application put in, and this triggered a neighborhood plan update. But that neighborhood plan update, that subdivision, did not trigger a land use bylaw amendment because the proposed development complies with the land use bylaw. So we did a update to the neighborhood plan, and you can see the original concept plan here outlined in black, and then you can see the proposed concept that we've outlined here in the black dashed lines. I'll go into a little more detail. So again, you can see the differences. They're really minor, mainly focused on the layout of the future subdivision with a few adjustments here and there. And I'll just maybe run through these refinements. So we've updated land use boundaries to match the land use bylaw. So this land use change was done previously, and the town wanted us to make sure that the neighborhood plan and the land use bylaws boundaries were conforming. We refined the street network to match the proposed subdivision. So those roads were, if we go back here, you can see that the one north-south road moved a little bit towards the east. You see there's now two crescents rather than one. A slight change in the cul-de-sac at the very bottom. But again, really minor in terms of changes in the street network. And then we revised the landscape plan that's shown in the neighborhood plan to match that what that was approved by the town, which I'll show you in a minute. And finally, we just recalculated the density. It went from 19.6 UPH to 7.9 UPA to 19.1 UPH to 7.7 UPA. And that's mainly because, and I'll just go back, you can see we have this big big brown blob in the north with no roads running through it. You see in the proposed concept plan, we now have roads running through it, public roads. So just with the additional roads, you just see a little bit of a slight drop in the density overall. So, and then here's the difference in terms of the two parks, with the original on the left and the approved landscape plan on the right. You can see that really it's just on the far northeast side, there is a arm that runs in the northeast kind of direction. So otherwise, just minor tweaks again. So now we just wanted to make note that.
So I was trying to find.
Right. Yeah, we just wanted to make note that back in 2009, when this land use amendment was approved, there was a lotting plan attached to it, and this lotting plan is essentially the same as we have today. So we've conformed to that lotting plan that was shown in council in 2019, and we're just really bringing all the different documents in alignment with each other to ensure that there's proper direction, and wanted to make sure that council was aware of this aligning of the land use bylaw and neighborhood plan and the subdivision all together. So what's the benefits of this? Well, we'll diversify the housing mix in the community. We have quite a few different housing products proposed. It will complete this part of the neighborhood as well as the neighborhood park. It offers more fee simple product and less condo units. So that large brown blob that I talked about before was mainly going to be a condo site. Well, now it's going to have a lot more fee simple townhouse product. And finally, it connects the whole network within Heritage Hills in this section here. So if you drive up there, you see some kind of discontinuous road network. Well, this will help align the roads together. So that ends my presentation. Kept it pretty straightforward just because it should be a relatively straightforward changes to the neighborhood plan.
So this was the plan I was trying to fumble my way through. But yeah, obviously on the left, that was the Schedule A to Bylaw 30, 2019, basically intended to accommodate that lotting plan. So again, last fall, when we acquired the property, recognizing it was perhaps a little bit unusual to have a lotting plan tied to a bylaw, it certainly provided us as the investors and developers that added a level of comfort that this plan and what's proposed is certainly going to be accepted. So wanted to highlight that. And my last comments, even though there's all these different colors, really it's from a land use perspective, it's simplified. Basically, the bottom 2/3 of the property are an RMX or RMX, which is accommodates from a permitted use, singles, semis, or duplex, and street town product. And then the northern third, which is an RM, is a higher density product type. So that land use, again, is already in place, and all product types that we're proposing to go in here certainly meet those permitted uses. So again, this is really intended to be an administrative exercise and cleaning up some internal streets, and happy to answer questions you guys may have.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Council, have questions? Councillor Federico?
I just have two quick questions for you. Underneath the three kind of squares on the new proposal, is that a pathway that's coming in there, the little line underneath?
Sorry, are we talking right? Yeah.
Is there a cursor on there we could drag? There it is.
Is that cursor there?
Yep.
Yes, that's a pathway.
That's a pathway?
Yeah.
Okay. And then has your park space in the new proposal, has it increased, being that there's that kind of extra arm coming off? Has it increased in?
No, it stayed the same.
Okay, perfect. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Reid?
Yeah, just two questions. Clarity around the proposal to have more density in that northeast corner. Can you help me understand what was with there proposed there and what is being proposed there?
Yeah, so we refer to that as our phase 2 currently. I can't speak too much to what was previously planned, other than to Patrick's well-articulated blob. It was intended to be a larger condo site, likely with internal streets that the developer would kind of manage. Hence, there not being streets proposed during the previous plan. Now, it's intended to be all fee simple. So duplex street town product is going to be the reality for that north portion.
So
The middle square, if you will, maybe some stacked townhouse development. We're still going back and forth with one of the builders on that, but that would only apply to that the middle square, if you will.
So Josh, just be clear, that like that little purple section there, is that what you're talking about as townhouses?
Yes.
And everything else would be semi-detached or going around that?
So this plan, this plan that was approved by council, absolutely, was intended to be street town and some duplex. Purple also, or the more pinky purple, was intended to be more of a duplex. Then it appears the balance of the property was anticipated to be single. Should emphasize with the RMX zoning that's currently there, it would anticipate there would be at least some duplex and some street towns in there. If it was intended to be solely single, it would be kind of the lowest density typically applied to it. So with our plan and our current subdivision plan that's in there, while the bottom 2/3 are phase 1 area, there's 86 lots in total. The majority of them are single family lots, but we do start to introduce some street town product kind of along this area here as well. Recognizing there's density considerations to make sure that we're achieving, et cetera. So,
Yeah, so the implications of this is just simply a cleanup. It's actually more than that, right? We're actually talking about changing what was a plan in terms of single-family housing. I'm just kind of picking up on what some of the concerns that we've seen in our package from the residents.
yep. Sorry, so it's we're implementing with the exception of our subdivision plan proposed to have some street town product along here.
Right.
We are following the plan to a T.
Okay.
And again, that street town product is a permitted use. And our subdivision plan that's in came back from an administrative perspective. There wasn't any comments on it. So.
Okay. Can I ask a supplemental?
Yep.
Let's just change gears slightly. So this council has gone on record as saying it doesn't want any more cookie cutter communities. We have enough of those. Thank you very much. And some of our neighbors, neighboring communities are welcome to take those developers. So we've asked developers, and I think this has probably come to you, and Mike, I'm looking at you, but I'm assuming to other developers in this area that we want to raise the bar. What in this community do you think raises the bar that's not another cookie cutter community?
Thrilled that you asked that question. So thank you for asking that. Down along the South Ridge and certainly along the west, fantastic mountain views. I know there's lots of places like that in Cochrane, but what makes this unique is 50-foot lots that are not common in Cochrane at all. So this whole South Ridge, we've partnered with an estate builder who typically builds multi-million-dollar homes, particularly out in Chestermere around the lake. They're adjusting their business model to attract a slightly cheaper product, if you will, but still keeping their quality in place. So this bottom ridge in particular, and this bottom third of the plan, if you will, some really cool estate community product types going to be introduced there. We've got some great architectural controls, obviously recognizing we have to fit into a great community around it, and of course we're going to be doing that, but wanted to add a little bit extra, a new product type, if you will, that isn't in abundance, I don't think, in the Cochrane marketplace right now. So that southern ridge is going to be really great.
Anything else, Josh? I mean, I personally think that's a great move forward in terms of that part of that subdivision.
Yep. I can get into like the sustainability side of things. We've partnered with a couple of sustainable builders that are doing really cutting edge stuff when it comes to, I don't want to talk on their behalf, but there's some pretty cool sustainable features they're going to introduce into their homes. But that gets more into built form. But yeah, other than that, along here, we're going to have some great mountain view ridge lots overlooking both green space and the mountains. And yeah, at the end of the day, we are completing a community, providing connectivity, both east and west. And of course, with our MR green space around the bottom, around the west side there, that's going to be a real amenity as well.
Yeah, just segueing back to my first question, I still have some concerns about the housing mix, but I'll leave that for now as I noodle on that, listen to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Council, any other questions? I've got a couple. So just to be clear, you want to go back to the?
If I could just to finish off. If there was, from a street town home perspective, so three plexes, four plexes, five plexes, we've actually reduced it compared to what was in the original plan. Thank you for pointing that out. If you focus on the center, these are actually single family in our subdivision plan. In the original plan, it was all intended to be a street town product throughout that, so we've adjusted that. So there's actually more single family and less street town in our current vision moving forward, including in phase 1. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. I've got a question around, and just want to be clear about land use. You're not asking for any change of land use. The land use that was already in place and provided by council, I think 2019 is the date you referenced, not changing that at all?
Not at all.
Okay. And I had a question on density. You answered that. It was in our package as well. Similarly to what Councillor Reid was asking, I'm not clear on what's changed from what was first introduced, specifically adjacent to existing homes that are already in the surrounding area. And would the type of housing be changing with the neighborhood plan amendment?
No, there is actually nothing changing. This is more internal as opposed to compared to existing development east and west. Sorry, I should preface it. On the west side, that green space that was intended to be just a street and then a park will have housing that backs onto it. On the east side, where obviously there's existing homes, that product mix is not changing at all from what was originally approved.
Okay. That's got my questions. I don't see anyone else with any. I think you're off the hook for now. Thank you for your presentation, and we'll move to the speakers list, which there are 3 speakers currently on the list. Thomas Jones, representing a delegation of residents. I've got a Robert Paquin, Paul Cox, and Michelle Jones. Yeah.
So a couple points I want to clear up before we really get into this. There's some history, Jeff, you knew that we met with you in 2019, and Drew, and we had brought this issue about what was going to back on our properties in Heritage Court. And we said, we're single dwelling families. When you start to put multi-dwelling families, it brings the value of our property down. In town, currently today, there's nothing that backs on unless there's a divider. There's a road and they're facing face to face, but nothing going back to back. Now, this started in 2019 when we met with you, Jeff, in your office. And I just want to point out that today, or a month ago, we met with Drew and a few others, and they said this wasn't going to be rushed through. We would have some time to really work at this. All of a sudden we get the mail saying, we're having the meeting in July. Guess what? Half our neighborhood's on holidays. The people we were working with, they're not even here because they're on holidays. So I think this is being pushed too fast with us. And I just wanted to put that out first. Now, in the history, Jeff, when you and I met with my wife and Drew, we had a discussion about what that should look like, because we said we moved to Cochrane, we liked Cochrane, and you know, we built this new house, we were living overseas, we checked with our builder and we said, what's going to be built there? And they said, eventually there'll be development. Great, we're happy for that. And it's going to be single dwelling homes. Now, it's not just our builder, Trico, but it's Sterling, is it? Stepper? They also said the same thing, and we checked with them. They always told us it was single dwelling homes. That's why we bought it. So when we saw the first time this coming up saying it wasn't, that's when we had the meeting with you. Now, in that meeting, you never once told us that in 2016, that all the development plans were already signed and sealed. Not once was that mentioned. Now, and it's funny that a plan can be developed without the say of your residents on either side having say in it. You put it there, you pass it, and then you say, everybody else has to just take it as it is. Not really very good say for town residents, okay? But also in that meeting, you did agree with us that it should be like for like. And you also promised us, because at that time the deal fell through from that developer. You said, both you and Drew, that when the next time a developer comes in, we would be notified so that we could have some say. Guess what? We were not notified. We only received a mail, or a mail out roughly 2 months ago, when most of this was already taken care of. Again, it's like it's being hidden from the residents of our area. Very, very disappointing. And Jeff, when we left your office in 2019, Sue and I were really, really excited. We thought, wow, we met the mayor of the town who understood us, gave us hope, and we were enthusiastic that, you know what, we're going to have some say in this. Today, I am thoroughly disappointed, and so are my neighborhood. We are absolutely astonished that we're going to allow this kind of density to happen behind our property. The developer doesn't care if we lose money on our properties, because it will. And you can look across Canada in any development. As soon as you have multi-dwellings versus backing right onto single dwellings, you will start to lose money. If I have to resell, that's not fair to me. I invested my life savings in building that home, custom home from a builder in this town. So, and by looking at the map we see today, that's not the original maps. They've been so confusing. Whether you looked online, whether we got mail outs, everything's always been different. There's been nothing consistent. So it's misleading to us, okay? Now, if I look at that, they say, well, actually it's gonna lower the density. Well, it's not, because if you look at the brown blob, so we're gonna be blob neighbors. It's really personal to say that, but it looks like it's coming lower now into the residential part of our area than it was before, with more of a higher density. We made a proposal a couple of months ago, or a month ago, when we had the meeting with Drew and Candace, and we said, why don't we put more of the multi-dwelling homes closer to the park? Because guess who uses the parks? It's not the people that have the multi-million-dollar houses. They don't do it. It's the people with kids, with families, and that's what you want as a family-oriented place in a community. So by building it around the park, that makes sense. It really makes sense that that's who's going to use the park. If I build a nice home, I'm not going to go in a park anyway. I don't have kids. They're grown up. But you have to think of who's going to use it. Now, the south part of it is going to be probably okay. They're going to have single dwelling. But I do ask you, and I challenge this group here, where in town do we have multi-dwelling homes backing onto single dwelling homes without any kind of roadway, walkway, green space, anything? We've driven around this town, and it's really, really hard to find. Might be one spot, but I haven't really noticed it today. Anything else?
Can you point out where it is that you live?
So we live right about here.
Okay.
So all of these homes here are all single dwelling homes. And they're not cheap homes anymore. These homes are between $600,000 and $900,000 homes. So what's happening is we're now going to have in our backyard, where normally you'd have one person, and that's usually normally how a community is built. Now we could have 2 or 3 story house with 3 families kind of locked into our backyards. It just doesn't seem fair to us. And again, it's about my value, my property. And looking at you, Jeff, really clear. We sat across the table talking face to face, and what really, really hurts me is that We were not informed, at least to have a say in it, when you guys started the second process. We knew that it dropped out because we were told. Drew sent a mail saying, that developer has finished. Now we're waiting for the next one. And I think we told you in that meeting too. We're all for the development. You need to develop in the town. But the signal that we're getting as residents, it doesn't care about the residents, it cares about money. That's all you're trying to do is jam in as many people as you can, wherever you can, and not really worry about what the residents of that area have to say. Any questions from anybody?
Yep. Okay, thank you for your presentation. Appreciate you coming and sharing your thoughts and concerns with us tonight. Councillor Federico?
I just have one question for you and then one for administration. When did you build?
We built in 2019, right?
Yep, and then we met with Jeff and Drew in November of 2019.
So we moved in May.
And so this might be for administration. That original concept map, that was already released at that point, or?
Yeah, I think this will certainly be covered when administration makes our presentation. We'll be happy to address that question.
I don't know about your past history and your conversations that you had. I do feel for you. I do know that you're not the only one who has built a house here and listened to a builder who has said that they're gonna promise there's all sorts of things in the community and they don't turn out to be right. It's an unfortunate reality as a homeowner that you have to really dig deep, not listen to a builder who's gonna tell you whatever they want to tell you that is gonna build your house. Like, you actually have to go on the right and do all the research, pick up the maps, and make sure that you're really kind of understanding, and then maybe even communicate with council beforehand, right? Because that's an unfortunate thing happens to many people, and it's not just you, it happens to a lot of people.
So as I explained to Jeff in that meeting, we moved from overseas, and we were trying to do this from overseas. We didn't have the access, so you trust the developers, you trust the builders that the town authorizes in here to have correct information. And even again, when you talk to the mayor and somebody who's involved with the development and they're promising you that you will have a say in what happens, I could do all the homework I want. And that's why I said, when we started looking into this, there is so many different plans out there. They're not consistent. They've moved around, they've changed. They're not consistent, guaranteed. The colors didn't line up before, and we've pointed this out before. So yes, you can do all your work, and you know, I give the town all the credit in the world for passing this while there's nobody there, because then they can't say anything about it. So what I'm hearing is that it doesn't matter. It's been passed, it's done, go home and suck it up.
Thanks
So
for
you
your
can do all your work.
Councillor Reid?
Yeah, two things. One was, well, not part of the meeting with you and the mayor. I can personally say that if Jeff said what he said, he was probably giving you the best information he had at his time. And to suggest otherwise, I think, is just simply inappropriate. I would say that to start. My question is, having made that comment, so I understand you correctly, if there were a pathway, a public bike path or something between your property and the proposed one, you'd be comfortable with that?
No, I mean, I'm saying there's green space or something in other places that gives you space. A 3-foot bike path isn't gonna make much difference.
Right, so green space on either side of the bike path, you'd be comfortable with
You
that?
need some space, because normally you would, if it was reversed, where the front of our houses was going against those buildings, cosmetically and acceptance is much better. But backyards, what happens in backyards? What's a lot of backyards look like? It's just not as appealing, okay? And when you spend a lot of money developing your yards, maybe somebody else doesn't, but usually there's a backing when it becomes the multi. So, I mean, it's a consideration that's there, but there needs to be space or something, a roadway. But
Yeah.
preferably face-to-face would be the way to go, not back-to-back.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. I just had a question of clarity for the presenter right now, and that's when we look at the proposed concept plans, there's two different colors that we see backing onto the R1 homes that we're talking about. Is it both zonings in question that you're speaking against, or is it only the top northeast corner?
The whole street of Heritage Court is all single dwelling families. And they've all expressed the same thing, that they would like single dwelling families backing onto them. So I know it's lighter and lighter, but with less density as you go further south. But it is the whole street that has sent in the letter on behalf.
And you're speaking against both zonings right now, not just the upper northeast, it's the whole, okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Councillor Federico?
Can I ask one question, probably maybe to the developer, maybe administration, I'm not sure. Around that kind of dotted line, I know this is very early steps or stages, but would there be a possibility for people to at least put wood fences up? Or is it all chain link through there?
It's wood right now.
It's wood now.
Yeah, it's wood right now.
It's wood right now?
Let's save that for the developer when I think the developer will have a close.
Okay, I was just curious.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. We have other speakers on the list. Thank you. Paul Cox? Oh, that's you? I got Robert. That was you? You're Thomas,
Yeah.
okay. I'm confused. I
All right.
thought I called Thomas in the,
No, we just.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much. Rob was just going to speak first, just to kind of give the history. I know you had a conversation with yourself and Drew from planning. But, so I just wanted to make a few points tonight. You guys received the letter from the Heritage Hills neighborhood, and you can see there's 16 homeowners on there. I'm just representing those individuals tonight that signed on the dotted line there, just expressing their concern. And like Rob touched on, is on April 25th, 2022, we received the letter with the Heritage Hills Stage 2 amended plan. So when us homeowners received that, we were all kind of shocked, which kind of started everything. And then we had a month and a half ago a meeting with the residents as well as the planning department upstairs, which was good. We had 33 people show up just to find out what was happening. So the 16 homeowners that signed the letter, like Rob touched on, we're not opposed to development behind us. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for Cochrane. You know, hearing the developer talk tonight about the cheaper estate lots backing onto the park really doesn't make sense for those types of family units to be on a park. It should be a more high density or medium density there. Single family, we'd love to see single family behind our single family homes on Heritage Court. But what we're asking is, we're asking council to consider some sort of division. If it's not gonna be like for like homes, because the plan's too far gone and can't be changed because it's gonna cost the developer too much money, is we ask for some sort of reserve land behind there. So some kind of green land with a path, which would only make sense to connect it up to the Range Road 262, because 262 in the corner, as you can see in the top right corner on the proposed concept plan, there is a pathway that goes out there out of the street on Heritage Court. It would only make sense to adjoin those two. Safety for children, as you all know, Range Road 262 is a speedway. On the weekends, everyone uses it to circumvent the traffic that's on the 1A going into town, and until that project's actually completed and finished, I'm sure that 262 is still going to be a shortcut for people to head up to Cochrane Lake and all that area up there. So with that said, we're just asking that, you know, there's 16 of us that signed that letter. Not everyone could sign it because not everyone's here, they're on holidays. And we would just like council to consider some sort of either changing it to like, or putting some sort of reserve pathway, alleyway, something back there to give us some division. So, okay, thank you very much. Any questions?
don't see any. We're likely
Okay.
gonna have the same questions that we had for the previous speaker.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Paul Cox? You're good? Michelle Jones? Same concerns as the, yeah. Okay, would call on the developer applicant to come forward and with some closing remarks.
Yeah, you know, obviously, as a homeowner, et cetera, you hear what was just presented. You can have some level of sympathy. I understand it's not the most desirable for a single-family home to necessarily back onto one that isn't. I'm a homeowner, I get it. You know, that said, when you look, just looking at what we have here, the original concept plan, this is approved, right? If things go sideways and the proposed concept plan, which we think is actually less dense and less of an impact, we would just default back to this. And that then opens up the door for us to put in a much denser multifamily site on the north end, which I don't think anybody wants. And I'm not at all trying to be threatening by this. This is just the reality that we have in front of us, right? The worst that happens is if this does not get approved, we're back to this, and this I actually think is worse from a density and interface perspective than what we're currently proposing. The original has more density, more multifamily, more street town product type. What we're proposing by integrating streets into that is that it's not blocks of condos, that we're not going to have all street towns the top 2/3. It's a more integrated approach. I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's the right way to go. You know, I'm looking at dates. 2016, 6 years ago, this plan that you see on the left, the original concept plan, was approved. Land use was approved for medium density residential. 2019, 3 years later, still 3 years ago, an updated land use was given that allowed for this type of a concept plan to occur. We're simply following through on that. So from our perspective, it's internal street reconfiguration to accommodate less street town product type and not allow for a large multifamily product to occur on that north third of the property. Thank you.
Councillor Reid?
Thanks, Josh. Just a couple of questions. With the more integrated approach, is it possible, and again, this is out of my wheelhouse, but is it possible to have single family and multiple family housing on the same block, like interspersed? Would that be desirable, or is that even marketable?
No, the street face, or the street interface starts to look a little bit awkward if you got a single family home and then a fourplex and then a single family home.
Yeah, or duplex is what I was thinking.
Or duplex. So this duplex and fourplex or threeplex, they integrate a lot better.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to be consistent along the one side of the street. It won't be any more than fourplexes. I think, you know, even for an example, what's happening over on the west side of the property right now, you're seeing fourplex product type that is really nice. Like it's a really nice product type. And we're taking it to the next level. Obviously, this gets into building, which we're not in front of to talk about today, but it's a good high quality product. And I think at the end of the day, recognizing the future plans to the north, with, you know, from a town's perspective, what you're trying to do there, it's important to not just have pure single family product. You need to have a bit more density happening in there. We're trying to do that, but not do it as dense as what was originally envisioned. That's important to.
So my answer to my question is no, it's not. It's not marketable to have single family and multifamily or townhouses side by side in terms of a block.
Across the street, yes, but on the same side of the street, it looks awkward.
Okay. And is there any appetite, given what you've heard tonight, to run a kind of down the spine of that property, a kind of green space path kind of network that would connect up to that other path, recognizing that the quarter section north of this eventually will be a recreation park, and it would be nice to be able to have a pedestrian corridor north-south running to that. I mean, again, they'll have to cross that road, but to that property. Does that make sense? So I'm talking about on either the proposed or the concept plan, just running north to south, a pedestrian path down the spine of that property line.
Oh, are you talking over here? Or are you talking over here? Like on the west or the east side, pardon me?
I was talking about the right side of the property. From north to south on the northeast corner to the southeast corner.
Yeah. It doesn't.
All
you're going to do is drive that. If I'm correct, we're talking on the right side, right? You're going to drive a pathway down into a back alley.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it a back alley, I would call it a pedestrian, I'm just thinking of a green space, right? Like my neighborhood, where there's grass on one side, a little path, grass on the other side, and it separates the lots, right, as they back onto each other. I'm just not asking for an answer tonight, I'm just asking if that might be something you might consider.
It's possible, yeah, it's possible we consider that.
That's all I'm asking, thank you.
Councillor Padico? Oh, sorry. Councillor Nagel.
Councillor Nagel first. Yeah, so we've got residents from the east side here who brought some concerns to our attention. I have some questions about the west side. In the northwest corner, are there current residents who think they own a corner lot? And if this is approved, their corner lot is gonna have houses built right beside them? In the top left?
Well, there was always going to be houses beside them, right? With the original plan, there was still going to be at least a couple of homes beside them. From my
Okay, so,
understanding.
okay, that was the crux of my question.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
those tan buildings or the tan zoning aren't actually built yet, so nobody has purchased what they think is a corner lot that will no longer be a corner lot.
Yeah, exactly. So the original concept plan, that black dashed line is actually a property line, so we were going to extend that anyway, so there
Okay.
would still be homes between them.
Okay,
and
so that is
yeah.
good news.
Yeah.
And I actually have the same question as Councillor Reed. We always go through these processes with developers and residents, and to be honest, it's not just you, just the whole process. It always feels like residents bring good ideas and good compromises, proposals forward, and they never turn into anything. And I would please request that you find a way to build just a bit of buffer, a small path and some green space to separate all these residents from the new neighbors that they're going to be receiving. And I guess my question to both yourself and administration would be, what do we need to do to at least give you the time and opportunity to consider that? And then come back and see if we can make a compromise to make you happy, make the developers, or make the residents happy as well.
So candidly, we're too far down the path on phase one. But phase one only extends a portion of the way up. I think it only extends up to about here. You can see
Sorry, I
that.
can't see the cursor. Can you spin it there? Okay.
Sorry,
Right.
where am I? Sorry, phase one extends up to around here. We could look at an opportunity for phase two to integrate a pathway system that would extend down to here and then bump out to the street. But for phase one, the planning, design work and everything, the builder commitments we're too far past that point, yeah.
Okay, I think that would be an improvement. Administration, what would the process like this look like? It's very telling that I've been on council for 9 years and I have no idea how to adjust a developer's plan during a public hearing.
Yeah, we'll be happy to discuss that when we make our presentation.
I guess to follow up with that, so if we were to introduce a change at this point, that would require a different public hearing, a different set of interface with the public, notifications, et cetera.
We'll be happy to discuss that when we make our presentation. I think if we were to get through the public hearing process, then administration would be very happy to engage on these questions.
Yeah, well, I guess where I'm going is adjourn the public hearing or recess the public hearing and allow, so that's where I'm procedurally.
Yeah, thank you. I'm certainly happy to have Jaylene offer her perspective on that. I'm not sure, again, we're talking partly about the conversation council had before, at what point is a neighborhood plan amendment required?
Yeah.
Part of the question would be whether or not adding of a green space would affect a neighborhood plan piece, and we would have to have some dialogue, I think, about what that is. But Jaylene, legislatively, in terms of the requirements for an additional public hearing are typically tied to whether or not we believe there's an amendment coming for a neighborhood plan?
That's correct.
So say that again, please.
I think it would depend on whether or not, so if this neighborhood plan comes forward here and is, defeated, for example, I think another one could come forward.
Okay.
And then we would require a new process, a new public hearing if it was changed. However, we could come out of this process, and if the changes were relatively minor, they may not eclipse the threshold requiring
Gotcha.
An amendment.
Okay, thank you. I was just looking for the procedural guideposts there, so thank you.
And sorry if I just on that point. In my mind, I was thinking a possibility would be limited to literally a pathway. Like to introduce green space on top of that, the whole street configuration, lotting depth, et cetera, are already tight. So to integrate anything beyond possibly a 2 or 3 meter pathway, which would probably look awkward and probably introduce some septet issues, et cetera, because it's not going to be lit correctly. I personally don't think it would make a lot of sense. It would be difficult. But anything beyond a 2-3 meter pathway system to be integrated in there would completely change the plan, and we have to readjust roads. So that becomes quite unrealistic from my perspective.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Federico?
Kind of listening to what some of the residents say, when you were developing those houses along that parkway, right, that are single-family homes, did you do any consideration about perhaps changing the configuration of what would back on to the Heritage Court properties, making those, you know, even cutting it into the corner there where kind of that one last lot is going up to the pathway, making those single-family homes and then creating multifamily homes along that pathway?
Good question. Candidly, we've just been following that council-approved lotting plan. That's what we're looking to do here. To look at adjusting stuff like that is like a bit of a complete redesign, because it's a small space. It's only 20 acres, right? And there's only so much you can integrate. So we've tried to take the path of least resistance, if you will. There was an approved lotting plan. We're literally implementing that. We found out going through the subdivision process, we didn't think there was going to be a public hearing process, that we needed to do a neighborhood plan amendment to accommodate these internal street reconfiguration. So to start talking about reconfiguring beyond that is not something that we'd want to do.
Gotcha.
Councillor Reid?
Just to be clear, so I understood you to say that a 3 meter path would be something you might consider. That's 9 feet, right?
We'd take it away. It would have to be for phase 2 only. But again, we only have 3 meters, if that's even a possibility. It would shrink up. It would shrink up the backyards of the existing future lots, pardon me, that we'd be building. So not ideal, but I also understand it would help with a bit of interface. Would need to, from my perspective, need to be dealt with as a separate process from what's in front of you tonight. And that would be tied to a phase 2 subdivision plan that we plan to bring in next year, market conditions dependent, but it's literally just accommodating a walkway from north down to that middle point of the property. Yeah.
Okay, so just for the record then, you would consider a 9 meter pathway north to south along the spine of that west side of that property. Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
Up to 3 meters potentially for a pathway, but then again, just thinking maintenance issues and septic issues, I don't know that that's something anybody wants to look at doing. We could look at accommodating up to shrinking our backyards by up to 3 meters, which would allow for a regional pathway is 3 meters. So that would be like fence to fence.
Yeah.
That's something we could possibly look at, but again, I think it would be awkward, and I think it would introduce some safety concerns.
I want to be clear about what I heard you say. Thank you.
Council, any other questions of the applicant? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you. I thought the fencing question was interesting. We're talking about interface specific. So did we hear, is it wood fencing currently, and what's the proposal currently with the backyards?
Yeah, I think there's a great opportunity there on our end, especially hearing the last couple of months. I did make myself available as the developer, happy to engage and connect with the residents. I did meet with the planning and development rep for the community association, had a good coffee with them, passed him my phone number, said if anybody had any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm very transparent that way. I do think probably the best solution here would be a good upgraded fence, if you will. Perhaps not the best planning, because you want to try and be as open as you can, but certainly from the residents on the east side, having an upgraded solid fence along there may be something they could appreciate.
I just wanted to hear if you, no, otherwise I'm done. I guess I'm done. Thank you.
You're good, Mr. Hagan?
I'm good, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I see a comment from the gallery. We don't generally get into back and forth. That's why we go through the speakers list. If there's something that you've heard that you would. If you could, So what I'm gonna do is, we're gonna kind of go against what our policy and procedures are here, but I don't want to get into a debate and go back and forth between, yeah. But if you want to come forward, and then I will allow the developer and the applicant an additional closing, just to get back on our program here. Thank you, Mr. Hagan.
Thank you for allowing this. One proposal we made at the last meeting was the area, just trying to find it now, the area right here where the single dwelling homes were. We said if you were to move and put the townhouses in there and put the single dwellings up here, the ratio of housing was not going to change any. And it's something that would work just as easy. So if you're going to put single dwelling homes back to back there, that's all townhouses now, and the single dwelling goes up the side. It wasn't going to deplete how many people you can have per acre, but it was resolving the problem. And with that, we had asked Candace and Drew to pass that on to the developer, and the response we got was, no, we can't make the changes because that plan was already pre-approved. So the discussion of having any changes, we knew at that point that it wasn't going to happen, because one neighbor in our neighborhood had the developer's number and was in contact, and that's where we got our information related back to us, through that and through Drew. So that was a proposal we made that we thought was a solid one, and it wasn't going to, it's not much, it doesn't cost money to change the plan, it's just what buildings you put where.
Okay, yeah, thank you, I think we understand. Sorry, Mr. Paquin, if you could remain at the microphone. I have a question from Councillor Nagel.
Yeah, so a question generally for the residents, hopefully you can speak on behalf of your neighbors. I know this is kind of like there's a kind of a gray area, there's lots of things to discuss and consider, but later tonight, council has an A or B decision. We don't have the luxury of talking about gray area stuff unless the developer is willing to work with us. So if the option is A or B, and it's that simple for council, which does the neighborhood like better, A or B?
Well, tonight we.
If you could just come to the microphone, if you would.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, really, we're here to oppose it until we can get a resolution. So that's the whole thing. We're not going to say we want one or the other. We're opposing this because we want to have more discussion on how to improve it.
Mm-hmm. But if we oppose it, it's by default back to A, which is already accepted. So I'm not trying to trick you, I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I know, and this is my point that I had said before. Maybe it was not value for us to come and speak on it because we're not going to have any say in something that was designed, in 2016 when nobody was there. So maybe we are wasting our time, but we want to have the chance to make some amendments to make it work for both. We don't want the developer to go to wait. We want him to develop it. And we're backing them up. So some of the simple solutions that we've put forth, and some of the councillors have said the same, there are compromises that can be made to make this work, and that's what we want to see. So I don't really understand why you want to say it's just yes or no, we shut it down, and that's what we go with. So you're not giving the opportunity to have another say. But if we reject it, yes, it goes back to the other one. Now that you're saying we're going to come back and propose again, but you're saying we can't. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so like if we vote against it tonight, A is already approved, and that's what stands. And I don't know what the developer's going to do with that. And
then again, the integrity of the council to me is really not in good favor, because we were told when that last developer fell through, we would then have say and have discussions on what was going to happen, not default back to something that was decided a long time ago. So I don't think that's a very fair statement. I know that that's the bylaws, and if that's the bylaws, then I guess there'll be a lot of unhappy residents of your town, okay. Our town. So I think it's better in the interest of all for us to sit down and see what can we really do to make this work. We don't want to have a fight. That's not what we're here for. We want to have an open dialogue.
And the letter that was sent in was opposing the Heritage Hills Stage 2 proposed concept plan. So that's what those 16 homeowners signed, and that's just to kind of put it back over to the original concept plan. But like Rob just said, we're open to communication. We want to have communication. We want the developer to have a product that they can sell, make a profit. Everyone's happy. So that's what we like to do. So, thank you.
That's it for me.
Yeah, okay, thank you. You know what, I really appreciate the approach, the dialogue, I do, I just appreciate that it's not a combative, situation that we're in, but it is kind of awkward here. Now, Mr. Hagan and applicant, I guess,
Yep.
another opportunity to close, if you will.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's kind of is what it is. So we have on the left the approved plan. Just did a quick look there. And again, I'm not trying to make this threatening. I'm not at all. But we have obviously run a business, and time is money, and we need to move forward. But we also appreciate and want to produce the best plan that we can. And I truly think that is what's in front of you, the proposed plan. And I say that the original plan, because there has been talk on my end, is there an opportunity for a higher density multi-site? But no, we wanted to do this because we think it's the best for fitting in with the surrounding area. The original and the approved, that would be the fallback should you guys not approve what's in front of you, accommodates up to 5 stories. And with the current lotting plan that's there, one large parcel, that can produce a lot of density, and that's approved by council. The plan's approved by council, the land use is approved by council. I don't want that, but it is what it is. In the event that this plan in front of you gets the thumbs down, which would, I think, be really unfortunate, for us to revert back to this is kind of our only option. I do think, however, the plan that's in front of you, the proposed one, some fencing interface agreements on my end. I appreciate this on the floor of council. This is not something you guys would deal with. There's no power for you to say you have to have this type of a height. I get that. I'm just saying, as the developer and wanting to do the right thing, we'll make sure that the fencing along that whole east boundary is a good quality fence. Happy to have conversations with the community association on what that could look like. And I will commit to look at for phase 2, possibly something to further buffer that with a minor pathway or something like that. But I'm not really comfortable with that, but it's something I'm happy to explore with. But kind of is what it is.
Councillor Reid?
Yeah, just to be clear, so you would consider in the multifamily housing, if council were to approve the proposed concept plan, upgrading the quality of fencing on those new properties, and you would consider a 3-meter path or green space path, whatever, as a spine down that west side of the property or east side of the property.
For the phase 2 boundary, we'd consider that.
Yeah, thank you.
So not to belabor the point, and I know we're not here to discuss land use, but the opportunity or the suggestion made by the residents of swapping that the multifamily site in the center and exchanging the 2 land uses doesn't work for the plan.
No, it doesn't work for the plan.
Okay. All right, I don't see any other questions from council. We're going to close the public hearing. All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Take a 8-minute break. Come back at 6:40. Go to our regular meeting.